Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Kaba or Simplex 5031. This is a B cylinder type in a WL trim in a 26D finish. And this video will serve as we're going to do a visual review of the contents of the box. We're going to go over the installation instructions. We're going to talk about the machining, the template, and hopefully we'll cover all the bases. We may or may not get into recovery of a lost combination. We'll see what happens. So I have one here. This is going to a military installation. They do certainly use the heck out of this type of lock. There's no question. This is going to be a as I'm simply pulling up the page again so that we can look at it properly. Okay, so 5031, that's going to refer to, of course, the function that we're dealing with. And the installation instructions are certainly linked to down below, as well as several other several other supporting documents. Okay, and let's dive into it. Obviously, the business end will come first. Okay, there's your exterior of your 5000 series. Okay, this is going to be a mechanical combination lock. So what this is going to be. You'll have your interior escutcheon. I don't know how similar the combination chamber is to the 1000 series, but we will possibly discover that. Okay. Like I said, a visual tour first. Exterior lever, small format, B for best, also obviously meaning small format. And any clone of it, you can put an Arrow or Falcon small format, anyone's small format cylinder into it. You might be, running you might be running a key system by Schlage, which happens to be small format. Those are the locks that you have installed, but you've switched to a different keying system. That's your lever trim. Your latch bolt. We're going to go over all the options of this material as well. That is a labeled product. That's important to have the label on the hardware somewhere to indicate that it is permissible and has been approved and found compliant for use on a fire-rated door. That's a 2 3/4 latch bolt is what that is. It has a floating faceplate so that you can install this on either square edge doors or beveled edge doors. Okay. A package of fasteners and, of course, your strike. Lots of piece parts are going to be here. ASA strike is also included. T-strike is in there, and your ASA strike for a hollow metal frame. Your tailpiece, or your driver, or your tuning fork, sometimes it's called. And that will allow you to work with either a 6-pin or a 7-pin. Okay, it'll handle either. And that's everything that's in the box. So let's take a further look at this. To start with locks like this is from Kaba or Simplex or whatever name they want us to call it. They always do a really good job in their price list by giving you not price list, it's just the price list, by giving you the example by which to build the part number. And it's a very elegant approach, and I like it a lot because the price list combined with the cut sheet really is the distilled version of everything that you would need to know to understand the series of locks, how to order the series of locks, and to, most importantly, get the function that you want. The Simplex Ilco Unican Kaba is a really great footprint of lock These locks have been used for decades by a variety of applications. There was a department store in Chicago in the greater area by the name of Marshall Field's once upon a time for, who knows, 100 years. Until Macy's bought them, and all of the Marshall Fields always had mechanical combination locks. Their L1000 series, allowing their employees to get to the back of house, so to speak. That was my first, as a child, seeing these buttons that would be pushed and they'd be able to enter. That's where I first looked at that type of lock. So let's look at the price list. Let's look at the cut sheet, and we're going to do that on the screen so that we can go over it looking at the same document together. Okay, now below this video on the page in the site where we're looking at the item itself, which is here, and while those links are not in this profile now, they will occupy the space in here. But the price list, as I had just mentioned, to me is an easy, and while this is a 2019 price list, this applies only in 2019 until it's superseded. So Dorma themselves do a great job with laying out the material. If you looked in a Dorma catalog, they are very logically laid out so that you can build a part number. And approaching this lock is to understand exactly what it is that we're looking at. They're always going to be a 50. Now remember, we're doing a 50-31, so we know we're doing a 3 in this area here. And that's a cylindrical lock, interior combination change, DOD. Now what DOD refers to simply is the fact that this lock meets the criteria set forth by the, you guessed it, Department of Defense. And there is on the Dorma Kaba site, Department of Defense lock program. The bottom line is this, and I'm not aware of the particulars that this lock complies, what the requirements of the DOD would be for this lock to comply with, but whatever it is, it's compliant. I would think that, you know, it's obviously going to have to do, we could guess, with duty rating, with anti-loiting, the ability for it to handle a number of combination possibilities, etc. Under the Department of Defense lock program, I don't know that it would be necessarily shared from the manufacturer what they did to the lock to make it DOD compliant. But whatever it is, this is the lock that you would order when you need cylindrical with an interior combination change, and we'll get to the function in a moment, that's DOD compatible. Okay, so that's the 3. The 1 is the part number down here that's telling us it's cylindrical, that will have a 1/2 inch latch throw with that floating faceplate and 2 3/4. So section 1, section 2 is literally, they call it access function, locking device, key override, that'll be the next option. Our part number has a B in it, so this is small format. Best and its equivalents, or its clones. It was Frank Best who patented the small format core in he was granted the patent in 1921. 6 or 7 pin length is going to work. We showed you the tail pieces earlier. That core is not included. We have a WL. We're over here now. WL, that stands for Winston lever. It's just the design. They call it the Winston. It's a lever, but they call it the Winston. You can do a knob. Then we're going to get into the finish and then how it's packaged. They're always, not always, but this lock will always be a 41. And the finish on our lock is a 626 or 26D is what they call it. They call it 26D because 626 would mean that it is a brass-based material with a satin chrome plating. The US number, or this number is a US number, does not tell us the base material, so it would be appropriate to use the 26D as a reference because they're not declaring what the base material of the lock is that has the finish on it. You can use this to great effect to build the part number based on the function that you need. The type of lock, the function of lock, the type of the lock, whether it's cylindrical or mortise, what your keying options are, and then etc. Knob or lever, finish. Exit device compatibility, if you were doing an exit device compatible unit, which would be the 501, you're going to toss that on the outside of a exit device, which is very common. It will be compatible with these functions, with these manufacturers' units. Now you're going to notice stuff that's missing here. This Monarch, that device has been discontinued for maybe 10 years. They're still out there, but and it's called Falcon now, but back when it was an 18, it was definitely a Monarch. The Falcon 19 series is not listed, and it's officially not compatible. If my memory tells me it's compatible, as long as you have a right-hand reverse door. I did it one time, and it was only because of the rotation of the tailpiece was compatible with the hand of the opening, but it's otherwise not compatible. You want a grade 2 entry-level style device, just go with the Von Duprin 22. That's what's going to work for you there in that regard. Okay, now the sister document to this is the cut sheet, and that's what allows you with the price list to really understand what you're dealing with. So this is an access control lock, eliminates the problems and costs associated with issuing, controlling, and collecting keys and cards. Provides exterior access by combination while allowing free egress. Sure, on the inside you can always get out. This is fully mechanical. There is no electronics in this whatsoever. This would be a single access code. They're saying it's one easy to manage code for all users. Yes, they're selling how easy and simple it is because there's only one code. They're not saying, hey, listen, you might need an audit trail. You might need, hundreds of codes. This lock doesn't provide that. Now, Kaba, Simplex, and Unican, they have those solutions. It's just not this lock. Programming is easily done via the keypad without removing the lock from the door. There will be steps that we will go through that change this combination, and you will absolutely want to change the combination because the combination that this lock ships from the factory is the same as every other of these locks. They're all the same, so you'll absolutely change the code. Otherwise, millions of other people are likely to know the code, and we'll get to what that code is when we get to programming. These are non-handed, and that's super nice. Okay. Key override, key and lever cylinders, small format design. And the fact that it's field reversible is a nice change to the L1000, which is not field reversible at all. Key override, key and lever cylinders, or small format, large format available as well. Let's look at those cylinder options. They can do the key and lever Kaba in their keyway, or the Schlage C. Small format. Large format by Corbin, Russwin, Medico Asa, Yale, and Abloy, Sargent, and Schlage. And that should be called FSIC because Schlage doesn't call theirs LFIC. It's full size by Schlage. Just fun fact. Operation modes. Push button access. Passage on certain models. Exit trim. Passage meaning you can set it into a passage mode so that you can have free ingress. Exit device lockout mode as well. Disables the lock from the inside so that the code cannot be used to gain access. Access is permitted using the key override only. That's an unusual variant of that lock. Not unusual, but less common, at least for me. Clutch free design. So you can rotate that lever without engaging the retracting of the latch bolt. And that also resets or clears the combination chamber. Economical, I wouldn't argue that. Gets into the locking device options again, the exit device compatibility. Construction, heavy duty solid cast housings, solid cast levers. ADA compliant, wear tested for extensive use on indoor and outdoor applications. Sure, it's mechanical, so there's not electronics to get wet, and lots of people use these in exterior applications. Vandal resistant metal push buttons. Cylindrical exit device and mortise style is available. Important to know that if you on your fire rated door, assuming that that's what you're doing, you'll want to be mindful of what your minimum latch throw is. It's generally 1/2 inch, but you might have an unusual application that requires a 3/4 inch minimum latch throw, so definitely check that. Minimum style recommended 5 inch. That'll be just to fit the lock on the door. Some weights are there as well. Cylinders that it's known to be compatible with. Interchangeable core, small format, and large format as well. Let's move on to the next part of this video. Now in this part of the video, we're going to tackle the installation instructions, and it would be helpful for you to have that document up because I want to be able to demonstrate the lock as we go through it. And they get immediately to the table of contents. Nice to have. Let's go down to the bottom. It's so important that they put it basically right in the beginning. Operation. Warning, the combination of this lock has been factory set at 2 and 4 depressed at the same time, then the number 3. So literally, cycle that one time. That's that clutch reference. The latch does not retract when I'm cycling the lock, and I don't have that all the way on. We're going to definitely reverse this lock. You're going to press 2 and 4 at the same time, and you're going to press the number 3, just like it says. The combination of this lock has been factory preset. 2 and 4 depressed at the same time, then 3, and then enter. For your security, the combination must be changed at the time of installation. Then enter. As I rotate, you watch the retractor. It now pulls it back. I rotate it again. Does not work. Okay. 2 and 4, 3, enter, retracts. The table of contents we had just mentioned. Let's go right to changing combinations. Let's jump to page 16. So when we get to page 16, section M, it's going to talk about changing the combination. Again, it's factory preset for 2, 4, and 3. 2 and 4 together, then 3. Push enter, then you can operate. They want you to change it when the lock is installed. I would suggest just change the combination before you install the lock. They're very clear to tell you whenever you're changing the combination, be sure the door is open. You don't want to get locked out. The installation instructions about changing the combination are really super clear, very step by step, but you need to just read them step by step. Do nothing more and nothing less than exactly what they're saying, and it works perfectly every time. The combination can be changed using 1 to 5 of the lock's buttons in any order in the combination, but you can only use each button one time, either independently or together. Note, 3 or more non-sequential button combinations are recommended for higher security. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably not as good as 3, 1, 2, 5, 4, that sort of idea. Caution, the door must be open during the entire procedure. The combination can be done without removing the lock from the door. That's definitely true. Ensure that the door is open during this procedure. They've just set it twice, within 2 inches of it. Rotate the outside lever knob once to the stop position and release to reset the lock. The latch should not retract. So what they're saying there is rotate the outside lever or knob one time to the stop position, then release. The latch bolt should not retract. All you're doing is clearing the lock, the combination chamber, for receiving the combination. Pressing the existing combination followed by the enter button and release, but do not turn the knob or lever at this time. So section M1 is, we're going to skip section M1 because it doesn't apply. M2 is an exterior combination change model, which we don't have. If we were to hop back to our price list, we have a 503 model locking function, which says cylindrical lock interior combination change. Okay, interior combination change. And that's our interior change. So we're not going to be able to change the combination from the exterior of the unit. Okay, that would be not the model that we have. So in the installation instructions, let's skip over M1. M2 is the exterior change. M3 is the interior change. And as you read through that, the lock's already installed. You're going to remove this special little screw. All it is a cover screw is all it is. You will get this special little pin Torx wrench. If this lock was installed, you would remove that screw, take it out, don't lose it. Through that same hole, you're going to stick the wrench. The wrench is going to communicate to the Torx prep on the back here. Okay, so let's go through the installation instructions together live right now. Unscrew the special Torx screw on the inside housing using the supplied Torx wrench. Enter your existing combination and depress the release, and depress and release the enter button. Unscrew the Torx screw, enter the combination. What you need to do first is clear. Then enter the combination, 2, 4, and 3. Depress and release the enter button. That's all you do. Don't do anything else. Insert the longer end of the same wrench, made it to here, turn it counterclockwise, it says. Counterclockwise using minimal force. Not too hard. I've had clients call me and say, hey, this lock doesn't work, and they've sent me a photograph of the lock, and they have torqued the daylights out of it, and I think to myself, how much hand strength do you have to twist metal? There's no reason to overdo it. It'll just break something. So minimal force, counterclockwise. They say 90 degrees. I don't think we go quite that far. Until it clicks. It went about 45 degrees. You may or may not heard the click, but it clicked. Return it back to the original position. Return wrench to initial position. Take it out. Put your Torx screw back on. M4, this step is very important. So all I've done right now is I've cleared one time, enter combination, push enter, release, wrench in, counterclockwise 90, bring it back to the standard location. Now, the next step, M4, this step is very important. Rotate the lever knob once and only once to clear the old combination, and the latch will retract. What's making the change is the fact that we have inserted our wrench to tell the combination chamber, hey, we'd like to set a new combination. That's what really makes this change. So I've done all the steps. I'm going to rotate the lever. It will retract. And at the same time, it's cleared my combination. Now you put in your new combination. Just to keep it simple. Enter and release. M6, that was M5. M6, rotate the lever knob to verify the latch retracts. It does. If you try the old combination, it shouldn't work, which was 2, 4, and 3. I can't even really, the enter button doesn't even really work for me nice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I didn't hit enter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm used to the L1000. Enter and release. There we go. So quickly, 1, 2. Let's clear it. Clear it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Enter, release. This time I'll put it to the microphone so you can hopefully hear the click. Click. Back. Vertical. Rotate to operate. and clear. Enter the new combination. 2, 4, and 3. Enter release. That works. Our old combination should not work. Don't even like the enter button on that. 2, 4, and 3. Clear. 2, 4, and 3. And hold the phone. So now here's what's happened. My combination that I set, 2, 4, and 3, is not operating the lock. I don't know what the combination is. Doesn't work. I don't know what happened. I must have not pushed the enter button and rotated the trim. That's okay. We were going to go over how to recover a lost or unknown combination in this video anyway. Well, I wasn't sure I wanted to have done it in other videos. But now we're for sure going to do it. Okay. It is, it's an investment in time to do it, but it has to be done. So on page 18 now, we're going right to how to reset a lost or unknown combination, and let's jump into that. Now, if you had the lock installed on the door, you would certainly need to remove it from the door. And they're saying in step O, section O, -2, removing combination chamber assembly. Carefully remove the base plate of outside unit assembly A by removing the 2 Phillips screws. One screw may be under an inspection sticker. Both of these screws here and here were underneath each of these labels, and I've peeled them off and I've relocated them, I should say. So we're going to get in here. When you're removing a lock from the door, you're going to want to keep your thumb on this. You don't want anything to jump on you. There's no doubt about that. And I've recovered combinations on these locks a number of times. I don't do it often enough to be able to do it from memory. And it's not fun in the sense that you have to actually study it and look at it to do it. Remove the combination. Okay, so what they're saying now, they're not telling us, but this plate's got to come off. Okay, so all of this is self-contained. I'm going to put all of this down. We don't need this. That's the combination chamber right there. Remove the combination assembly B from the base plate by removing the 2 screws C. Not helping us with a large image of that, but I think I see the 2 C screws. Yeah, I think what they're... They must be referring to this screw and this screw. I know it's the top one for sure. It's just not very clear. So let's remove those screws and see what we come up with. And in fact, I've never changed a combination on a 5000 series. Don't expect it to be very different than a 1000, except the combination chamber physically looks different in size. And given the fact that the screws are the same, these C screws with a small star washer underneath, I've got those 2 screws removed, and indeed that combination chamber does just lift out. Okay. Now we're going to put all this aside. Lots of lithium grease on there. Remove the 3-sided dust cover D to manually expose the chamber by removing the 2 small Phillips screws. May be 1 screw in newer models. Okay, newer model, 1 screw. So I'm going to get my small set of screwdrivers. As an aside, we distribute these Weeha screwdrivers. What I like about them is that if you do enough work with a screwdriver, you're gonna, you'll have, if you're not wearing gloves, you're gonna put a little welt in your hand. That has a tip that rotates, so I can take that and have that rotate in my palm, and I like that a lot. Make sure it's a good, perfect, not good, but a very good fitting connection. I'm removing the 1 screw. I've got the 1 screw. And I'm removing the combination chamber, or the dust cover they call it. Now this is where the fun begins. Got the dust cover changed, and that's really the business end right there. What you're seeing here is this assembly here, and you have to rotate your cams so that they operate correctly, so that it will seat into the unit by rotating them. It's a trick. Okay, now let's continue on in our installation instructions. Okay, step 03, to reset the code gears, and this is the part that you need to read a couple of times, at least I do. To reset the code gears, each one of the 5 L-shaped legs of the unlocking slide must engage snugly with the corresponding code gear pocket next to it. Position the chamber in one hand. So what they're meaning first is the code gear slide. Yeah, I'm surprised that didn't work, because it looks like the combination would have worked the way that this is. Actually, I see what my mistake was. That little notch. That little notch. That little notch. That little notch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 2 and 4 are in the right position. Or they're in the same position. And it could be 3 is just in the wrong position. The code may have just been 2 and 4 together. I may not have seated 3 all the way. 2 and 4 together, and then enter. Doesn't matter. We're already past the point of no return. Position the chamber in one hand as shown. Hold the chamber by the top screw tab. Okay. Rotate the reset cam back toward you with your finger towards the key stems as far as it will go, and then release. Okay, let's study that for a minute. Okay, now the step that we're in here is step 03, resetting and recovery of a current combination. Again, a literal interpretation is what's necessary for this. Before we get into recovering the combination, with a little bit of study, you'll be able to look at this and know what the combination is. And here's what I mean by that. As you look at the locking bar, which is part C, they call the unlocking slide, this black portion here. That's the unlocking slide, the black portion with these legs. If you look at the gears, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the bottom line is this. The gear that is rotated furthest away from the locking leg is definitely the first combination. If there are 2 that are equally furthest away, then they've been pressed together. Okay? So what happens when you are recovering it, you're going to recognize which of the gears, the notch in the gear is furthest away. So as we study this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, our 1 gear is all the way over here. It's actually flush. Our 2 gear, compared to our 3 gear, the 3 gear is much further away. Well, it's further away. The 4 gear is flush. It's already in position like the 1 gear. And then the 5 gear is actually closest. It's almost going to hit it. So our 1 and 4 are in position already. 3 in the middle is furthest, followed by 2, followed by 5. So this code is 325. How I entered that, I don't know. Now, we're in O3. To reset the code gears, each of the 5 L-shaped legs of the unlocking slide must engage snugly with the corresponding code gear pocket next to it. You can't just rotate these code gears. They just don't rotate. The way to get them to move is to press the buttons in the proper sequence. Rotate the reset cam back toward you with your finger. That's the reset cam. We can rotate this. Rotate it towards you. So this is the position you're working from. If it was me, I'd be holding those gears toward me and I would rotate that reset cam toward me. So we've reset it. We've pushed that cam toward you, towards the key stems, H, which are these. These are the key stems. Reset cam is perpendicular to the body. That's the bottom line. Now look at the code gears. We've already studied the code gears. We know 3 is furthest away, followed by 2, followed by 5. So what we'll do here is read. Typically, each code gear pocket will be slightly different distance compared to the other. They are. When you study these, even though it's difficult to see it on the camera, it's not impossible to see it on the camera. 1 and 4 are in position. 2, 3, and 5 are out of position. 3 is the furthest away, followed by 2, followed by 5. Note, sometimes 2 different gear pockets are away from alignment by exactly the same distance. This indicates that the current combination uses 2 different number buttons, for instance 2 and 4, depressed at the same time as part of the combination. Using a small flat blade screwdriver or your thumbnail, depress the key stem, which corresponds to the gear pocket that was rotated furthest away or out of alignment with the L-shaped leg. When depressed, the key stem should stay down, and the gear pocket should click closer. Record the key stem number. This is your first number of your combination. So 3 is furthest away, so I'm going to push 3. I've got this rotated towards me. I'm going to push 3, and it should stay down. Okay, I can feel that it definitely stayed down. And now, when we study it, 3's not so far away anymore. 2 was the next furthest away, and I'm going to hold that. I'm going to depress it, and hopefully you can watch the gear stem change, or the gear pocket move. Okay, you saw it move, and it clicked in my finger. The last one to move, the last one was going to be the 5, which was the least furthest away. 1 and 4 are still in position. 2 and 3, or 3 and 2, they're much closer. Now, when I hit that 5, it's going to rotate 5 and all of them, or 2 and 3, to be in alignment. I pushed it, I felt it stay down, everything moved. You'll notice that the gear that we had rotated towards us is now moved over, which was called the Part G reset cam. There are 2 more positions left in that reset cam because there are 5 buttons and we only push 3 of them. Now, when we study this, let's study it now. Now it's important to say that if you depress the wrong key stem by mistake, and you can tell they're not each one moving closer to a vertical alignment, simply take this, rotate it all the way back, and leave it there, and then start over. Okay? There we go. Everything is in alignment now and in focus. Let's do it again, just because we're gluttons for punishment. I'm going to rotate this and reset. Okay. 1 and 4 are still in alignment. 3 is clearly further than 2. 5 is closest of all. So the furthest is 3. I'm going to push 3. It's going to click. I'm going to push 2. Watch how everything moves. Everything moved. Well, 2 and 3 moved. 5 was the closest. That'll be the last. I depressed that. And now, again, everything is in alignment. Okay? You can always restart. It's going to take you 5 minutes of studying that to get the gist of it. Now, let's move further. Clearing the current combination and resetting a new combination. Align the code gear pockets with the L-shaped legs. We've done that. Everything's aligned. Depress the combination change button, this brass button up at the top. Depress that and release. Depress and release. Everything is engaged. The locking legs are in the gear pockets. Rotate the reset cam back towards you with your finger toward the key stems as far as it will go, and release. It's back to its original position. Enter your new combination by depressing the key stem corresponding to the first number, 1 through 5, of your combination. For example, if the new combination is 325, magically the one we were changing it from, you would depress 3, then 2, then 5. Let's just change it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, and it stays depressed. 2, 3, 4, 5. What you didn't notice that the gear wheel was clicking every single time. Push the shoulder J at the bottom of the unlocking slide up toward the combination change button and release. If each of the 5 L-shaped legs of the unlocking slide engages snugly inside of its corresponding code gear pocket, then it confirms that the new combination has been successfully changed. Rotate the reset cam back towards you and release. So this is up. Everything is locked. This goes back towards you and release. Again, if all 5 L-shaped legs do not fully align with their corresponding code gear pockets, start over. We could sit here and do this all day. Now, I made it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would be easy to remember and not forget, but I also made that combination so as to better illustrate the original point. And that is, when you study the gear pockets, what was the first button that I depressed? 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. You're going to be able to see that 1 is the furthest away, the top one. 2 is closer than all the rest. 2 is the next, 1 is the furthest away, 2 is the next furthest, 3 is getting closer, 4 is getting closer, and 5 is the closest of all. You enter those in reverse order, which is meaning you enter them in the proper order that the combination is, but the furthest away gear plug is your first combination. So you just have to look at those and say, okay, which one is furthest away, or which ones are equal and furthest away, and then you depress those accordingly. Now this should be ready to rock and roll on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what we're going to do next is reinstalling the chamber assembly into lock and retesting. So we're going to reinstall our gear slot, our dust cover. I'm going to place that down because I need to get my screwdriver. I'm going to tighten that down. Don't over tighten it. Reinstall the base plate on the outside lock assembly. Okay, let's take a look here. Reinstall the three-sided dust cover. Reinstall the combination chamber assembly to the base plate. There is indeed only one way that this can go back in. There's only one way for this to go in. If you're not sure that you're comfortable with doing that, take pictures of it before and after as you're taking it apart, or I should say before. I've done that in the past. I was wiring some lights, these lights over my shoulder, and I had forgotten how indeed I had wired it. So I took apart one that I knew that I had did correct a year ago, photographed my wiring, put my original light back together, and then quickly wired my two new lights. Combination chamber is back where it belongs. Reinstall the base plate to the outside lock assembly now. Now we're going to put this all back together. And if you recall, we had only 2 screws that were needed for that. It's always nice when it fits back in and you can tell that it seats itself. Your 2 screws will go back in. And with any luck, this combination is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 when we're done. Then they want you to reinstall the lock on the door, which we're not going to do. So we're going to grab our lever. So we've taken a little detour here, but we were going to do it anyway. Let's clear. Nothing retracts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Enter, release. Wait a minute. Hold the phone. Now, it can certainly be a bit of a rabbit's hole that you go into if you're going to, work on the combination chamber. And don't go in there unless you need to, kind of stuff. But if you do need to get into the combination chamber, there are a couple of tips that I'd like to send your way, basically, to at least allow you to succeed if the combination chamber has to come out. There are moving parts inside of here that have to be in the right orientation in order for the lock to work, meaning you can reset your combination chamber and you're looking at it, and as you reset the combination furthest first, you get them all to line up, okay? And then you put it back together and the lock doesn't work. So first of all, this entire plug assembly here, this needs to be vertical the way I'm showing it. Not tipped to one side or the other. It needs to be vertical. Otherwise, you're going to be timed incorrectly. Also, when you're looking inside of here, the 2 triggers need to be in their orientation. Kind of like a bird's mouth. This piece here, you can tell it kind of flakes up a little bit. Then this piece here. What happens is when you enter the proper combination and you push the button, you're going to push both of these triggers in. When the proper combination is entered, you'll be able to lift the bracket. I'm holding it on the wrong side. Lift the bracket. So right now, if I were to push the button, all I could really kind of do, and I won't go very far with it because I can't, would be to snap this button down, which doesn't do anything. Only when you enter the right combination will this trigger allow you to lift the bracket. So if we enter, this is set to 2, 4, and 3, back to the factory code, and I emulate pushing the button, you can see that I can lift my chamber, and I engage my lock down here. And when the lock is rotated, this trigger comes out, resets our gear bar, and the lever action will force that button to clip back up. And you need to have this gear stop pointed towards you. You need to have this button pushed up, and those triggers set just like that. I don't know the proper name for these lobes, because I just don't have the exploded parts diagram. You know what we do though, and we're going to go over that in the video later. Actually, I think we'll look at it now. And when you put this back together, it needs to go back so that when you test the lock, it obviously works. I did get successful retraction on that. So pulling the combination chamber out is really only part of the battle, and it will definitely frustrate you if you've not reassembled the lock back the way that you need it to be. Let's jump in time a little bit and take a look at the parts manual and identify some of those parts. Now let's take a look at the parts drawing as just mentioned. And unfortunately the parts are not referred to clearly at all. I was hoping to help dispel any confusion that would arise. At least it did with me, in a sense of needing to study how the lock needed to go back together. So when I pulled the combination chamber out in order to recover a lost combination, I was able to put it back together, and the lock didn't work. The combination seemed to work, but when I rotated the lever, nothing happened. And then it worked initially, but then on subsequent attempts, it didn't work at all. And a very odd circumstance occurred where when I took the combination chamber out a second time and I inspected the position of the gears, they were in a very unusual place. And what I had discovered was part 17, and I simply want to call it by the right name, extension sleeve assembly. I had that rotated unintentionally. I had this rotated so that it was laying on its side. So as it sat inside of the lock housing, it was not vertical as you see here. It was clockwise 90 degrees. So it wasn't allowing part 13 to be, it wasn't allowing part 13 to drive it correctly, to affect the resetting, to affect the call to the combination chamber to confirm that a valid code had been entered, to force, and the trigger is not clear here at all to me, but to force, this may be one of the two triggers, to force the trigger that communicates to the bottom of the sleeve to check whether you have a flush gear condition. So this needs to be vertical, as I discovered. And like I had said earlier, I might suggest that you consider taking a photograph of the lock as you take it apart, only so that you can draw or lean on it as a source to determine exactly what is not happening correctly. Ultimately, the lock can be taken apart, put back together, obviously repaired. Replacement parts are available, and that's this part of this video, basically showing you all of the parts that are available. And the very first time years ago that I did a combination chamber code recovery, while I had figured it out, and I have, under the part number seen here, Kaba Access Control Comp 7424100001, I have a video going over the combination chamber change. That video is from an L1000, I believe, or a 1000 series. Not a short video by any means. However, installation instructions here, in my opinion, give a clearer set of steps so as to understand what those gears need to look like, the code gears. Okay. And I use this document to great effect, and this is not for the 5000, but the concept is the same. But I can tell you this, I called Kaba and I spoke to a tech support representative who was so thoroughly knowledgeable about it, could do this in his sleep, and may have been involved in the manufacturing of the item once upon a time. Incredibly knowledgeable. So if you get too far in and you really can't figure it out, call them. They put the number in the manual. I think they even put the number on the back of the lock itself with the decal. I'm quite sure that they do. So don't hesitate to call them. They're very proud of their product, and they support it, and they did so on that opportunity when I had to speak to them. Now, let's continue on looking at the parts manual to see if there's anything else here that's important. And what I would tell you would be important would be to have this document. If you're going to save the box, there's a warranty card. I would print this off so that you can get the part number for the latch, probably the most common part that we sell. The combination chamber is really not that common to sell. There is, from the locksmith community, I think a general disdain for the combination chamber, that it's not robust and they're constantly breaking. I've never had experience personally of it being not up to the task. I have found it to be a brilliant piece of mechanical engineering that I have been able to bring back to a proper working condition 100% of the time I've done it. Other parts that we have sold, we've sold the from the 5000 series lock, we sell the trim time to time. There's no doubt about that. The replacement key cylinder, occasionally the thumb turn, that seems to get tampered with. Looking through the rest of here, not a lot of these other parts are often sold. This piece is used for changing the door thickness, which we may get into a little bit later. And this document is the Mechanical Lock Parts Price Book. They don't, to my knowledge, list an exploded parts drawing of the lock without having list prices involved, which is nice. It will give you an idea of what the cost is. Of course, by the time you're looking at this video, this 2019 catalog might be a decade, out of date, and all of the parts may be discontinued. But anyway, currently, this is how you're going to manage the lock. And then after the exploded drawing, and then you continue to scroll through, you'll get to the description and the part number. The part number in the description, we were looking at part 17, extension sleeve assembly. That's your part number. That's your list. Okay. What I don't see in here is lithium grease. They don't sell a little packet of grease, which would be very nice if you're going to be servicing the lock. It'd be nice to have the factory original lithium grease. And I'll attempt to get a description of what grease is used, because if you're going to be changing this material, you'll need to properly lubricate the parts as well. And I think this discussion about the parts manual has been adequately covered. You know where to get it. You know how to maneuver the document. Where we left off was retesting the new combination on the lock on the door. I had recovered the combination. I set it back to the factory 2, 4, and 3, talked about how to do that, and the original combination now works. Now we're going to go back to where we were in the installation instructions table of contents. We have handled M and O. Let's look at door preparation, which will also allow us to look at the template as well, which is here. So door preparation on page 4. And I have machined doors thousands of times, and I can tell you that this is all very simple and straightforward. It will start out life as what we would call a 161 prep, and that 161 prep is literally the 2 1/8 inch hole with a 1 inch bore in the edge of the door with a 2 1/8 inch cross bore. This prep will be 2 1/4 by 1 1/8 and 5/32 deep. And looking at the template, you will start out with that 161 type prep, which would be the typical preparation that you would find on a hollow metal door or an architectural wood door. If someone were to say I need a 161 prep, that tells me the 2 1/8, 1 inch, 2 1/4 inch and 1/8, but it also specifies exactly 2 3/4 back set. Okay, other latches are available for this, part 27. So let's get down to part 27. That was part 27 was the latch, and the purpose of showing you the parts diagram is this. There are lots of different latch options, many that are 2 3/4, many that are some that are 2 3/8, primarily because there are different finishes, but also because, well, in the case of 2 3/8, it's different finishes. But latch 1/2 inch, latch 3/4 inch. You need to be mindful, as I had said earlier, about what latch bolt you order. You have to look at the label that's on your door. It will say minimum latch throw. This is a point of failing a fire door inspection when the latch throw is not sufficient. And we do sell a handful of these 3/4 inch latch throws. It's obviously the projection of the latch bolt is obviously greater than 1/2 inch. So back to the template. If you're going to do a 160, if you've got a door that's prepped for a 161, that's already 2 3/4. So make sure that you order your lock with a 2 3/4 latch. And what's nice about this template here is that they allow you to fold it over on what's called the fold line here, and then gives you the center based on your door thickness. Now, the thing that I'd like to mention about the door thickness is to be mindful, and I say this because you have function holes here. A quick discussion on what is a back set is necessary. So we've got 4 door edges here: square, raveted, radius, beveled. The definition of backset is from the center of the thickness of the door. It's from the center of the thickness of the door. Okay? This will be the center of the thickness of the door as well, wherever that rabbet dimension lies. The point I'm trying to make is this. If you measure 2 3/4 back from a square edge door on both sides of the door, you're going to be in good shape. You do that same dimension on the high side and the low side of a beveled door, you're not in good shape. So be mindful, that is where they're measuring from. And I don't know, well, they do tell you, be sure the fold is exactly on the bevel, on the edge of the door, high beveled edge. So you're going to place this template on the high side, which would be the pull side of a beveled door. The issue is you can't take this template and then fold it on the small side, the push side of the door. The problem with this is that I imagine they're expecting you to accurately drill these holes all the way through the door, which I wouldn't do at all. I would be compensating how I drill the door. You know, and how I'm compensating is this: 1/8 inch in 2. For every 2 inches in door thickness, that bevel is 1/8 of an inch. So you can tell that the dimension from here down to here is almost a 1/16, and this is almost a 1/16. So you do have to compensate for that when you are going if you're going to lay out your function holes on each side of the door, which is how I do it. After you have a 161 prep, it's simple. You're going to lay out the rest of these holes. A couple little funny holes here. Those are going to be for screws going through the door. This you're only going to prep if you have a 504 or a 505 series function. Okay, you'll skip that hole if you don't have it. You will always drill these bolt holes, these two quarter-inch holes. These two quarter-inch holes, you'll need all 4 of those through the door. This will be on our lock, a 5031, and that is going to permit the on our lock, when you remove that Torx flathead bolt, to send that wrench through the door to be able to change the combination from the inside. The fact of the matter is this, however, we're definitely looking at a lock that's got a big plate on both sides of the door. So at the end of the day, you can kind of get away with being a little sloppy, but there's really no excuse to be sloppy with your holes. There just isn't. The holes should be in the right location. When the factory does it with CNC equipment, their CNC equipment is compensating for a bevel. They're programming it accordingly. Okay, so if you're going to go from the high side, you're really going to have to make that tape measure a little bit longer, so to speak. And that's going to be your prep. Now, the vertical height is going to be referenced from this horizontal line. Depending on the height of the door, this is going to be determined. You know, whatever the door height, you know, for what's the center line of the strike in the frame, this will all be compatible and determined. And prepping the door for the hardware it's just simple in the sense that what do you need? You need a 1-inch bit, you need a 1/4-inch bit, okay? You need a 2 1/8. That 1 inch will do the bore prep. Your edge prep, that's just a router and your template. So it is pretty easy work to be able to prep for that. Now, let's continue on in the installation instructions. Won't go over the door preparation. That's going to be elementary. Lock handing. Let's go over that next. Okay, now continuing on, lock handing. The 5000 is non-handed. That's pre-assembled for a left-hand door. So reversing the door is fairly simple and straightforward. Remove the 2 connecting screws A from the cylindrical drive unit and rotate the cylindrical drive unit 180 degrees. Reposition spacer C as found before disassembly. Remount drive unit with the 2 connecting screws. Let's take a closer look on rehanding that. We obviously have our lock here, and we're going to remove those 2 screws, part number A, and I use a very low power drill for doing this kind of work, only because it just makes removing screws that much faster. And while we're doing this, we're going to go over the door thickness as well. That screw is in there pretty tight, and not wanting to run the risk of stripping the screw, I'll always use a hand tool. I just use the electric part to do the substantial amount of manual work. Now what they're saying to us is, there's our drive unit. I'm just going to put that back down on the table exactly how I took it out. What they're saying to us is reposition spacer C as found before disassembly. So looking at this, this appears to be completely symmetrical. There are a couple of dimples on the other side, and I'm just going to put them right back into where they would go. And if you recall, the plunger was on my side. I'll just turn it at 180 degrees. And as we study what their drive unit connector looks like, it will mate to that portion, because the plus sign basically that you see there is going to fit right where it goes. Okay, now I've reversed it. It's simple. I'm just going to put it back the way it was, because this does need to ship to this client, who is a DoD client, the way that it was configured. So the door thickness, the Simplex 5000 lock is pre-assembled to accommodate a standard thickness of 1 5/8 to 2 inch. That's nice. It's nice because sometimes people will clad the door, you know, making, or it could be a 14 gauge hollow metal door that's, you know, literally 1.875. It could be a fire rated wood door, and I've measured those with the caliper, and they've come in sub 1.7. Reference A for thinner door applications. Let's see here now. Step C-1. Reference figure A. Where's figure A? I must just be referring to the figure on the right hand side. If you're doing an 1 3/8 door, 1 3/8 to 1.5 inches, you're going to pull your out your cylindrical dive unit, and you're going to not use this spacer. You're going to toss it. Keep it. You're not going to throw it away. C-2, oh, forgive me. If you are doing, you'll need, if you're doing the 1 3/8 to 2 inch, remount the cylindrical drive unit using the two shorter 1 3/8 connecting screws supplied. They are the only screws in the package that look like the original, except that they're marginally shorter. They say that they're 1 3/8. These are clearly 1.5 inches. Let's see if we have other screws. Oh, we do. I didn't see them sitting there. Those are clearly like the original. They say that they're 1 3/8. Let's double check. They indeed are spot on. You'll use the, and I'm going to put these screws back in the bag as we go through them. Now, if you're doing a thicker door, reference B for thicker door applications, 2 1/8 to 2 1/4. Remove the two connecting screws from the drive unit. Add the extra spacer required. Again, 2 dimples. That's obviously going to seat into the dimple recessed area here. You're going to have both of your spacers. Remount the drive unit using the same 2 screws. Do not over tighten the screws. Definitely don't do that. We're going to pull that out. We're going to put that in the bag because we've covered it. And then we're going to remount our drive unit. Now, we are at step D, but we're not doing this passage set as they refer to. So at this point, we are going to scroll down and get into step E is what we're going to get into. Step E so you have the function holes drilled. Your latch bolt's going to have to go in first. Yeah, somewhere they must have already told us that the latch bolt is going to be installed. So the latch is going to go in the prep. You're going to make sure that fits nice and that it operates correctly with its 2 screws. These are 832 wood combination, wood and machine thread combination. We'll put those in the bag. Again, floating front that will accommodate you. Here's why this is a dead latch. This is a keyed function lock. This is the dead latching tab. There's a term in the locksmith world called lloyding. Well, there's a term in the world called lloyding. Locksmiths use it to describe someone who's going to tamper with that latch bolt. But a properly installed latch bolt with a deadlocking tab is depressed prevents lloyding. I can't push that in. It's also a requirement in a fire-rated door that this be installed correctly because the way that it was tested in the fire test was with the deadlocking tab back. Okay, so the latch will go in first, and then what you're going to do is make sure that you slide, they're telling us, slide the drive unit A into the 2 1/8 inch hole by depressing the latch bolt in slightly. So I didn't need to depress it, but very typically, or maybe I did subconsciously, very typically you will need to just push on that latch to get that to move back a little bit, to get it to slide in. Okay, I'm finding that just ever so slightly, you need to tap on that to get that installed right there. Now would be a good time to show you what that looks like. Oh. Okay, that's what that looks like when it's sliding. Step E-3, the drive unit must engage the latch, unit prongs, and the shoe retractor, F, must engage the latch unit tailpiece. So, as we had described earlier, all of these pieces need to be connected to each other. Okay? These prongs that are up here, right here, they need to be engaged. Then the retracting slide, that needs to be in the retracting hub itself. Okay, so that it's all positively engaged. I don't have it engaged. Right on. Now we're connected. Now F, installing inside unit assembly. Because we don't have a passage function, we'll be jumping over that portion. But basically the bottom line is, the latch is in the door. This is on the exterior. You're holding on to this. You're not allowing this to move or to fall on you. You're going to bring your interior piece. Oh, that's threaded in. That can't fall out. Okay. So, as I may have mentioned earlier, there are a whole mess of screws that are involved. All of these screws, the only difference is the length, because you've got 1 3/8, 1 1/2, 1 3/4 to 2 inch, 2 1/8 to 2 1/4. Okay, so the length of these screws is what's different. You're going to use 4 of these screws as it pertains to your door thickness. I'm going to put those back in the bag. At that point, we pretty much have a lot of the lock already put together. And then lastly, what you're really going to end up doing now is installing the inside lever trim, and that's going to require the Allen wrench and the set screw that are included. Your lever's has tapped holes on both sides because it's non-handed. And as it's shown in step G-1, you're going to get your Allen wrench and your set screw. That will go through your inside escutcheon, through that access hole. Allen wrench will go in and you'll tighten your lever that way. I won't tighten it here. There's no reason to. It's very simple and straightforward. This is not a knob lock, so we're going to skip H. But however, getting to the tailpiece section, this is the B version. So we're not getting any of those KIL, KIKs. We're only getting our tailpieces for 6 or 7 pin, whatever it is. Okay, and you're just going to notice that the length is very slightly different. A 7-pin cylinder is a little bit longer than a 6-pin cylinder, therefore the tailpiece has to be a little bit shorter. We'll put those in our screw package. As we look through H, that is conventional core material, you're obviously going to install your exterior lever. Will indeed be by the same process, another set screw. There are 2 of them in the package, and your Allen wrench. Going to put those, and I don't think we need our Allen wrench anymore either. Put that away. Now your exterior lever is on, and that is prepped for small format. Best, Arrow, Falcon, any clone who's ever made a copy of that. However, step J is how you install the outside lever or knob for interchangeable or removable core models. Make certain the lever catch is up as shown in C. So now what they're driving at here is in step J1, make certain the lever catch is up as shown in C. The lever catch should be flush around the entire diameter of the outside driver. Make certain the lever sleeve is rotated to properly mate with the outside lever knob. So the lever catch is this gizmo right here that I'm touching. I can take this pin that's included. I can push that down. I can push it up. The bottom line is it needs to be flush with the top of the unit and the bottom of the unit. If that lever catch is down or up, let's just push it down. And you can see now that it's projecting down below, right at the tip of my tool. The lever doesn't go on all the way. When I push that up so it's flush, like I just did, now I can get the tool, the lever, all the way down. Now it's all the way down. The lever sleeve they're referring to is this component right here, and this little intersection at the tip of my finger is what they're referring to. You want to make sure that that's aligned. That part can slide off, but it comes already attached. Insert the outside lever until it is flush to the outside unit assembly all the way down. Insert the release tool or a screwdriver into the outside lever as shown and slide the lever catch down. So if I were to stick this in and push that lever catch down, that lever catch is going to reside in that small little grooved area right at the tip of my finger. And that's how it's going to stay in there. Okay. Usually those are spring-loaded. They obviously don't have a problem with that getting moved around. As we scroll through the installation instructions past the other basic information, we do get to J3, insert the supplied tailpiece with the flat installed vertically into the outside lever or knob as shown. Make certain that you rotate the tailpiece so that it aligns with the rear of the core. For screw cap cores, for screw cap type cores, which Schlage is, it has a threaded cap retainer. The tailpiece must be assembled to the core first, with the tailpiece vertically as shown. Okay, so we're doing small format. So they'll want you to put the tailpiece driver down in first, tailpiece vertical, and when you bring, which means the okay, so and what may seem a little bit confusing is, inserting it vertical. The reason they're inserting it vertical is, as you may know on the back of small format, the two small holes, those are horizontal. Well, if you were to stick that into the back of your core, you'd have to install it horizontally, okay? However, in a lever, your cylinder is rotated. It would normally be flat if it was a knob, but when you rotate the lever, everything gets turned 90 degrees, so horizontal becomes vertical, okay? What I would probably do is install this to my cylinder, have my control key in the cylinder, and then insert it sideways, laying on its side all the way in. And then they go through, the different tail pieces that you would be using for the different systems of locks. Test the lock operation is what they obviously want you to do. This is a simple lock in the sense that you've got your functionality from the outside. you have the ability to change the combination via the tool on the interior aspect. At that point, after step J, where they talk about the tail pieces, K, section K, is testing the lock. Make sure everything works. Okay. Then we get into installing the strike in the frame. It's probably already installed. And then we're in step M, which we started out this video with. And then step O, recovering a lost combination. Hopefully you never need to go there. And then they have troubleshooting. And I won't go over the troubleshooting in the video. I don't really have a lot of problems with these locks at all. And when I do, if there is any problem with any lock working, it's usually because the holes that are drilled are not exactly perfect. A lock doesn't like to be constrained at all or restricted at all when it is, you know, needing to breathe inside of the lock prep. So we've gone over all of these parts. There are a couple of doodads left over. We're going to give you some silencers, some bumpers. We'll put those in the bag. They do have, and you don't need it, but there is a clear plastic, well, it's already installed on the lever, a clear plastic trim to seal that off. Did skip over section N where they talk about installing rubber bumpers. Close the door and apply pressure, making sure the dead latch rests against the strike plate as shown. So what they're saying is, again, oof, hello. What they're saying here is that a proper installation is going to look like that. Not anything like that. Proper installation is going to look like that. Should you need to pad the equipment out at all, close the door and apply pressure, making sure the dead latch rests on the strike plate, meaning the dead latch is on the face of the strike. Standing on the frame or the doorstop side of the door, check for gaps between the door and frame on the three sides of the frame. Mark locations where the gaps are approximately 3/16 of an inch. Make sure these locations are free from dust and debris, and then you will apply your rubber bumpers. Okay. In case you have, so what they're saying is if you've got a door that's got a little bit of giddy up to it, a little bit of warp, and when you push on the door, if you push on the bottom of the door, it might be tight to the face of the stop. If you push up on the top of the door, it might flex a little bit. And what they're saying is use those rubber bumpers to force the door to come into some sort of a parallel arrangement with the face of the stop, and do so in such a way that the dead latching tab is correctly engaged in the strike. There are these two other pieces of rubber insert material, and I admittedly don't know what they are. I don't see where they're referenced. These could be used and they're just in the hardware package. So that hardware package, with the exception of the tailpiece package, is probably the same hardware package. And you will generally see, like in a knob or a lever that is conventional core, to have these cylinder spacers that are inside of the lever that would normally go up in this area here to, when you insert the cylinder, to keep it from moving inside of the trim when you insert the key. This rubber bumper will literally stifle its ability to be pushed in, therefore rendering the lock not usable because you can't get the key all the way into the cylinder. So that's probably what those are for. That's certainly what they look like. At that point, there are no other screws here that we've not talked about. And you'll have plenty of screws left over because you've got 3 models of door thickness. So you'll have at least 16 screws left over probably, or maybe 12. That exhausts the installation instructions. We've gone over now. Let's go over all the documents that we have gone over. We've talked about the template. We've talked about the cut sheet, the parts price list, the installation instructions. Resetting code combination. The installation instructions are linked to down below. We have covered that in forensic detail. and then again the template. And at that point, you've got a really nice lock here that the manufacturer is very proud of. They do a nice job with these. The name Kaba, Dorma, Kaba, whoever, whatever their name is in terms of how you're seeing it, Ilco, Unican. The contents of the material of the entire box. You've got a link to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Simplex, Kaba, Ilco, Simplex products that we sell, a link to the manufacturer's page, as well as a link to the full product catalog and several and many full product catalogs. The name Kaba, Dorma is under a ever-evolving umbrella of many high-quality companies. The people at Dorma, I've got a tech support rep there. The people at Kaba are not as responsive as I would like when it comes to questions. I could only imagine it being because of the huge amount of requests they must get on a daily basis, like how to recover a lost, combination in my combination chamber, etc. But they're all fine folks. It's a good quality product naturally, and their material is obviously synonymous with hotel lodging sort of applications. Any questions on the 5031 and a B and a Winston lever, or any other Kaba, Dorma, Kaba, Simplex, Ilco, Unican product? Please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.